Cave of the Crystals. The Cave of the Crystals in Mexico, located nearly 1,000 feet below the surface, contains some of the largest natural crystals ever discovered, some over 30 feet long and weighing up to 60 tons. It's like standing inside a cave made of glass swords, but don't get too excited because you're not allowed in. The temperature inside can reach up to 58 degrees Celsius or 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with 90 to 99% humidity. That's hot enough to start cooking your organs if you stay too long. Even professional researchers can only be inside for about 20 minutes at a time, and that's while wearing special cooling suits and oxygen tanks. This extreme environment is what allowed the crystals to grow over hundreds of thousands of years, but for humans, it's a death trap. And if that's not enough, the cave is now completely flooded. Since the pumps keeping it dry were shut off in 2017, it means even if you could handle the heat, you'd need scuba gear just to get inside. Pripyat Hospital Basement. Just outside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant lies the ghost town of Pripyat. It was evacuated in 1986 after the worst nuclear disaster in history. The town is filled with abandoned and now destroyed buildings. Among the eeriest locations is the hospital, specifically the basement of hospital number 126. This is where first responders, the firefighters and plant workers who arrived at the reactor minutes after the explosion, were brought for emergency treatment. Their clothes, heavily contaminated with radiation, were discarded and left in the basement. Radiation levels in the basement remain high, even nearly 4 decades later. Tour guides who bring visitors to Pripyat will avoid the hospital entirely, or at most show it from the outside. Going into the basement, on the other hand, is completely forbidden. The hospital itself is decaying and will eventually collapse. Monkey Island, South Carolina. Off the coast of South Carolina, there's an island that's home to over 4,000 rhesus macaque monkeys. Sounds like a curious place for an exotic animal sanctuary, but this is not a tourist attraction. In fact, no one, not even locals, is allowed to set foot on it. Morgan Island is owned and managed by the US government as a research site. The monkeys were relocated there in the 1970s after a disease outbreak in Puerto Rico. Many of the monkeys carry viruses that are extremely dangerous to humans. Some of these viruses, like herpes B, can be fatal if transmitted to people. The monkeys themselves don't show symptoms, but contact with their bodily fluids, yes, even saliva or scratches, can be deadly. That's why researchers who do interact with them wear full protective suits and follow strict quarantine procedures. Chapel of the Ark of the Covenant. This unassuming building in Ethiopia is believed by some to house one of the most legendary relics in history, the Ark of the Covenant, the one supposedly containing the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, it's been hidden here for over 2,000 years. No one is allowed inside except one man. He's called the Guardian of the Ark, and once chosen, he lives inside the chapel for the rest of his life without granting anyone else access. No photographs, no scientific studies, and no museum tours. Some believe it's the real deal. Others think the Ark never made it to Ethiopia at all. Researchers, archaeologists, and historians have tried to gain access, but have all been denied. In fact, in 2020, a group of armed men reportedly attempted to storm the site. Dozens were killed. Whatever is in that chapel, people are willing to kill protecting it. Room 39, North Korea. In the middle of Pyongyang, there's a place known only as Room 39. You're not going there unless you're part of North Korea's ultra-secret inner circle. Room 39 is believed to be the headquarters for illicit operations that help keep the regime running. Think counterfeit currency, arms deals, cybercrime, narcotics, basically the country's financial shadow engine. It was supposedly created back in the 1970s under Kim Il-sung and has grown into a global-scale black market network. No one outside really knows where it is. Some say it's in the Workers' Party building. Others think it's spread across multiple hidden offices in the city. There are no public records, even defectors rarely talk about it. If you think of trying to get in, North Korea's borders are some of the tightest in the world, and Room 39 is locked down even beyond that. Woomera Danger Zone. You'd think the middle of the Australian outback is nothing but sand, snakes, and sunburns, but there's a stretch of desert larger than England that you absolutely cannot enter. It's called the Woomera Danger Zone, and it's heavily restricted by the Australian military. Why? It's one of the most secretive weapons testing zones in the world. Established after World War II, Woomera was once a joint British-Australian missile and rocket testing site. Today, it's where hypersonic weapons, drones, and classified tech are tested far from prying eyes. Locals even believe there are things being tested out there that the public doesn't even know exist yet. Entering without permission is a criminal offense, and even if you somehow got in, you'd have to deal with the very real possibility of running into a military drill you were not invited to. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang was the first emperor of a unified China. He's the guy behind the Terracotta Army, the Great Wall, and some of the earliest versions of bureaucracy. But after he died in 210 BCE, he was buried in a massive underground tomb that's never been fully excavated to this day. The tomb is located beneath a large hill in Shanxi province and was designed to be a miniature version of his entire empire, complete with palaces, rivers of mercury, and booby traps. Ancient texts warn that the tomb is protected by automated crossbows and flowing mercury lakes that were meant to drown or poison intruders. And it turns out that wasn't just dramatic writing. Scientists have detected high levels of mercury in the soil around the mound, suggesting those old stories may be accurate. The Terracotta Army, which you've probably seen in photos, is just the outer symbolic defense. China's official policy is to leave the tomb sealed, both out of respect and because of safety reasons. The Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove is a private 2,700-acre property owned by the Bohemian Club, an elite invitation-only organization. Every July, the club holds a secretive retreat for some of the world's most powerful men, business leaders, politicians, and media moguls. What happens there is mostly unknown, and that's exactly why so many people think it's cursed, satanic, or both. The biggest red flag for many is the cremation of care ceremony, an elaborate ritual held at night where robed members burn a symbolic effigy beneath a giant stone owl. It's supposed to be a theatrical release of stress, but for outsiders, it looks more like something out of a horror movie. Journalists and outsiders have tried to infiltrate the camp, often getting arrested before they can get anywhere near the action. The grove is guarded year-round with motion sensors, cameras, and private security patrols. One thing's certain, you're not welcome there, unless you have an idea on how to make $1 billion. In that case, feel free to write it down in the comments for research purposes. Poveglia Island. During the time of the bubonic plague, ships arriving in Venice had to stop at Poveglia for quarantine. If passengers showed any signs of illness, they were sent onto the island, and many of them never left. At the height of the outbreak, it became a mass dumping ground for the infected. Tens of thousands of people were burned and buried there. Some estimates say over 100,000 bodies ended up in the soil. Today, the island is completely abandoned. Visiting is illegal without special permission from the Italian government. Locals believe it's cursed or might even still contain the bubonic plague thanks to all the bodies in the ground. Lascaux Cave. Finally, we get to a place without some horrifying past. Discovered in 1940 by a group of teenagers and their dog, the Lascaux Cave in southwestern France is home to one of the most important collections of prehistoric art ever found. The walls are covered in more than 600 paintings, some dating back over 17,000 years. However, human breath, body heat, and moisture began damaging the cave's fragile ecosystem. There's no danger for you here, but in this case, we are the danger to an irreplaceable part of our history. By 1963, France shut the cave off entirely. Only a handful of scientists are now allowed to enter, and only under strict conditions. To protect the site, a full-scale replica, called Lascaux 2, was built nearby so the public could still see what the original looked like. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.